Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Winandy with Mentor Me Advisors, and I'm bringing Zach and Cheryl to you today to talk about mindful money matters. And one thing that we're talking about recently was how when we got started in work, it was very common for people to have the same job for their whole career and not even the same type of job. Like where I have mostly in my career been an admin or paraprofessional project manager, but to be at the same place for their entire career for 50 years and to receive the gold watch when they retired. And it was very strange when I was growing up what to my parents, they found it very interesting that I would quit a job and go work at another place and that I had done it a few different times. In my 20s, I would go about 2 to 3, maybe 4 years at a job, and then I'd move on to something else. And it was because I wasn't being promoted. And I just was like, I'm not going to just sit here and take status quo. Like, I'll find something better for myself. And I went to college right out of high school, but I was on and off at a junior college. And I didn't graduate with my degrees until I was in my 40s. So, I just think it's interesting to talk about the differences between historic employment and current employment and like how it's changed over the decades. What are your thoughts? Cheryl?
You just took me down memory lane, right? These different jobs I had. I wish I lasted 3 or 4 years. I was about 1 year, and then
Oh, really?
yeah.
They called it job hopping when I was young. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm job hopping where I'm trying to find my place.
I think that you just nailed it. I think it's like if we can like right now I'm in the same position for the last 7 years, and I couldn't be happier. And I think it's a matter of finding that right fit for yourself. And
Hmm.
if you don't feel that's the right fit for yourself, it's okay to move on. But if I could just give one word of caution, make sure you have something else before you jump ship, right? And
Yes.
and one more thing I really want to help young people with too is don't burn bridges. That for me was one of the best advice I ever got in my life was not to burn bridges. And what does that mean? That means like if you know you're going to leave, be kind to everyone,
Yeah.
make it easy. Clean your desk up nice. Let them
Yeah.
know ahead of time. I mean, I know that, sometimes there's not this common courtesy as much
Yeah,
anymore,
like it makes me
but
think of
that's
the
so
movie Office
important.
Space where he's like, I'm gonna burn this place to the ground in
Yeah.
Office Space.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's be real, right? You can do that emotionally with somebody. You can burn that
Totally.
relationship completely to the ground. And
Right.
so I
It's a
think
small world.
yeah, and I think the reason why it's a very small world. And I think the reason why it's called burn bridges is because you might want to have that link to someone later in life. And believe
Yeah.
me, who's your boss right now in 10, 15 years, you may be their boss. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's happened. I've seen it. So don't burn bridges. That would be my
Or in
Zach.
in the working world, there's always nepotism, which is, family connections. So don't piss off the dad because you might be working for the son or daughter down the line. There's
That's
a lot of
true.
shows out right now where it shows like the child taking over the business. Like
No.
Yeah.
you want to make sure that those are strong relationships. And you mentioned LinkedIn. Spend time on LinkedIn because you can build a lot of relationships on there and find opportunities for employment when you haven't even actually physically met somebody. But if you make a connection with them online,
Yeah.
you could have a future employment there.
Well, let's hear what Zach's got to say about this subject.
Well, I mean, it was a good segue, Cheryl. I didn't even have to give you a cue or anything. But like, even though this is all I've done is be a financial planner, it's all I've done for 23 years. I've worked with different firms.
Mm,
And the
mhm.
one that I started out with was the one I took right out of college. And frankly, I didn't go to school to do this. I just thought, oh, this is something that I could evolve into. It offers me
That's
the
really
lifestyle that
interesting.
I want. I can learn it. I'm confident enough to get started. So let's give it a shot. And then as my career evolved, I had a direction I wanted to go. And so I left there and went with a different firm for a little while. I didn't make any more money, but I learned a lot. But I kept good relationships with the people at my first place. And believe it or not, I ended up going back there
Yeah.
Mm,
because that one in the middle just it ended up not being a good fit. I wanted so I went back to where I had started, and I stayed there for over 10 years. And then I was finally ready to do what I really wanted to do early in my career and be independent and operate my own firm. So, but having those relationships was critical, and it was so easy to just. I mean, it really wasn't even an interview. It was just calling them up, going back and talking to them, and they're like, "Okay, can you start? The first of next month?" Like, yeah, that's fine. And I literally went right back into the same office that I
Mm,
was in when I left, and the clock was stopped almost
stop.
yeah, seriously, at this at when like whenever it was stopped when I left, it was stopped whenever I came back. So
Zach, can you
so
talk about how you maintain those relationships? Like, what did you do to stay
That's a great
connected to
question, Heather.
people?
yeah, well, in my business you have to be professionally persistent with some things. But I do it not because I'm trying to make a sale, because I genuinely am trying to make friends and build relationships. I take a genuine interest in learning about people and learning about their story, because within that I can find things about them that maybe we have in common. And the more you have in common, the better that relationship is. And maybe there's a moment that happens in their life where I can help them with what I do. But I've just taken a truly genuine interest in learning about them and caring about them. Whether it's knowing what they're like during the NCAA tournament right now. I know clients' favorite teams. So depending on how they're doing, I'll just genuinely say, "Hey, your team did really well. Congratulations on making the Final Four," or
Mhm.
something like that. So people like it whenever you do that, and I don't do it because I'm trying to angle to get them as a client or something. It's because I just want to make as many friends as I can and help as many people as I can.
And can Zach, if I could just add something, what I heard there is the word genuine,
Yeah,
right? So we're all trying, we all are, if we're genuine in what we feel, we think, we speak, this makes a huge difference, I think, Heather, in keeping those relationships
Yeah.
and caring, right? Like Zach said, I really care about these people. I care that they're okay. I
mhm,
want to know how they are. So it's really that heart to heart human connection that in business is allowed, right? If done right, it can be okay.
How would you make a recommendation to someone, a younger person joining the workforce, with people who are older than them or that they might be shy to introduce themselves to? How would you recommend someone beginning to build relationships with different generations than them? Like, you don't have to have all your friends the same age. Like, a lot of
right.
my friends are decades older than me and younger than me. Um, how would you recommend people get over that hump of starting to get engaged with coworkers and just meeting people in general?
Yeah. Well, I think I've always tend to gravitate to people older than me. Um, and like when I first started out in my career, I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I was 22 years old. Pretty much everybody was my parents' age.
Mhm.
I wasn't afraid to ask for help. I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I didn't go into it thinking I already knew everything
Right.
and that
Good.
I was entitled to a certain level of respect. These
Mm,
people had more experience than me. They had been there before, and I wanted to learn from it so that maybe I didn't make the same mistakes that I otherwise would have. And I would even ask them, like, "Hey, if maybe we got into the topic of their story. Well, if you could do it over again, what would you do differently? Like, how did you
Mm,
end up here?"
mm,
And if it
mm,
was an issue that I was dealing with, I would seek out their expertise,
mm.
not because I was trying to brown nose them or earn points, because I want to make things easier for myself. And if I can learn from somebody else's experience, that's going to help me, and it helps build that relationship too.
I can see a really easy situation for someone to put themselves into when they have, quote unquote, done something wrong, where they feel embarrassed and withdrawn. But
Yeah,
those are opportunities for people to flourish. Cheryl,
absolutely.
what would you say to someone who maybe has made a mistake and how to reach out to someone for guidance and build a bridge, build that relationship?
Mhm. I'm just awed at what Zach said. I think was really great information. Come humbly to the table, right? Like, don't all of a sudden assume just because I'm here in this space and I have a title that says X, Y, and Z that I've earned my place here, right? Like,
Yeah,
so I think that it's really important to show your genuineness. We talked about, right? I love that he's bringing in this being humble and just kind of being an awareness, right? Like, where can I learn? That these people are coming with experience. Experience is golden. I mean, I think that's why we're all here. We want to share what we learn, so it makes it easier for the next person, right? That's what we're concerned about. So I would just say again, I think for me, I'm keep hearing the same themes, right? Like genuineness, being humble, not being afraid, right? Not being afraid to just maybe make that mistake, or maybe ask a question that might feel a little bit silly. But you know, when people see you, you know, that you're looking at them in the eye, that you're curious, that you care, and you know, you'll find your people, right? I mean, not
Yeah.
everyone's going to love you. Not everyone's going to like you even, but you're going to find
That's a really
people
great
that
point to share.
really want to help you, right? There's going to be people out there. So, you know, be yourself, whatever, however that you find yourself to be yourself and connect to the people that will connect back to you. I think there's always going to be someone there in that audience that's going to say, "Hey, I relate to you and I want to help you." Or
Yeah.
And I think that vulnerability, I think, is a
mm,
huge trait that whether you are a leader or whether you're the CEO or you're the janitor, um, being vulnerable and being willing to ask for help and sharing that vulnerability with someone else, I think that helps build trust right away. And
I think that's
it,
our great for our next talk, huh? Vulnerability
yeah,
and trust. So when we get to the next one, Heather, because this one I think is we uh we gotta go.
well, I mean, I think if you've made a mistake, just own it.
Yeah.
Don't pass the blame. Don't
Right.
you
And
are
don't
smart
hide
enough.
it.
Yeah, don't
Learn
end up
from
hide
it.
it because if you just go to someone else, whether it's your superior or a colleague or even someone who quote unquote works below you or whatever, just own up to your mistakes and say, hey, you know what, I didn't get that right or I messed up on that. Can you help me? Human
Right.
beings are wired that whenever they hear those words, can you help me? Almost all of them will want to, and that
Yeah. Yeah.
automatically brings the walls down, brings the guard down, so that that person is more willing to help you, and then you build a better relationship that way.
Yeah. And following through on what Cheryl was saying, we're going to keep it short and try to help you just with bits and pieces of how we got to where we are today. And we're going to do our standard closeout with Cheryl doing a mindful moment. So do you want to maybe close out on something with vulnerability?
So something to be vulnerable. I'm kind of not prepared. So
Okay.
what happens when you're not prepared in life? You have to fake it till you make it. Have you heard
You're
that
being
one?
you're being vulnerable right
Yeah,
now.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm being
Right
super
there.
vulnerable. She
You
put me in a vulnerable
Yeah,
position.
yeah.
So what am I doing?
all
I'm
right.
trying to
So
kill you
give
with
us a mindful
kindness.
moment, just something to think about as we close out. Maybe have
Yeah,
people close their
yeah.
eyes and think, put your phones down for a second and just be.
There you go. Sure. I don't know. We could all sit here too and just do it, right? Wiggle our toes, feel our feet on the ground, just soak in a little bit of what we heard. And before you click to the next video, just take one deep breath. And it's okay to be vulnerable. How about that?
Love it. Thanks. We'll see you guys again.